Welcome back to OMBI Anganwadi. Until now, we have learned how to retrieve data from tables. We came across different scenarios and learned how to use different techniques of data retrieval. But here is another scenario. What if we want to use SQL to make decisions? Say, for example, instead of just displaying the value of salary, you want to display high, low, or medium. This is where case statements comes in. Case statements are very similar to the concept of if-else statements in programming. It allows us to return different values based on different conditions. So now that we are good with the concept of case statements, here is a very simple example where we have to show the employee name, salary, and a salary category which states whether the salary is high or low based on the salary amount. So if it is up to 60,000 value, it should be low, and anything which is 60,000 or more than that should be high. So this is the rule based on which we want to show the category. So let's make use of our employees table, which we have already seen. This is our table. We have the employee name and salaries column as well. Let's pick up what columns we want to. So these are the two which we want. The next step is how we get the salary category. Here the decision making aspect comes into picture, since SQL has to make the decision whether the salary is high or low based on certain conditions. So let's make use of the case statement. The syntax starts with case. This is the keyword which helps SQL Server understand that there are a set of conditions coming up. We say when salary is less than 60,000, then low. So this is what we want as the result when the salary is less than the 60,000 value. But for any other amount which is greater than or equal to 60,000, it should be high. So we will add an else, saying else high, and we end it by saying end. Like how this case keyword helps SQL understand that there are a set of conditions coming up, this end makes it clear that this is the end of the case statement. And let's give an alias name to this column saying salary category, and run it now. We see this new calculated column added, and based on our condition we have the salary category as well. So anything which is lower than the 60,000 value has got low, and wherever this condition has not matched, we can see it is high. One important thing to remember here is this else part is not mandatory. It also runs without the else part. So let's see how the result set differs now. So instead of high, we got null over here. The reason is that SQL first checks for the condition which we have mentioned. So when salary is less than 60,000, we have defined what result we want, that is low. But in case this condition did not match, then we have not defined what SQL has to do. So by default, it returns null wherever this given condition has not matched. But since we want clear categories to be defined, we add the else part as well. Now talking about how the case statement is executed. When the query runs, SQL Server checks for the salary value in each row. That is, the execution goes row by row and checks whether the salary column is matching this given condition. Wherever there is a match, this defined result is returned. But if this condition does not hold good, it reads the else part. Also, case statements not only support just a single condition, we can also write multiple conditions along with else, and it also supports nested case statements as well. Let's go through another example where we will understand how we write multiple conditions within a case statement. Here we again want the salary category to be calculated. But the conditions here we see are slightly different. We want the employee name, salary, and the salary category based on three different conditions here. So the first slab here is between 20k up to less than 40k, which should be low, and starting from 40k up to 60k is medium, and anything above 60k should be high. And there are multiple ways to write this case statement. Let me take the same statement here and do the changes what we need. So we got these two, but the conditions here, since they are a little different, let's start with case and write our first condition, that is when salary is less than 40,000, then it should be low. So this became our first condition. And since we want another condition, we start with another when here. When salary is less than 60,000, then medium. This became our second condition. Now to handle this last condition, I can either use another when by saying when salary is greater than or equal to 60,000, then high, and say end. Or I can either handle this condition by just mentioning a simple else statement. So let's make use of this condition and run our query now. And here we see our result set. So when we go through each of the rows, we can see that anything starting from 40,000 between 60k should be medium. So we see this 40,000 and 50,000 amounts falling under the medium category. Here these two amounts which exceed 60,000 have fallen under high, and similarly we can see other values as well. When a query has multiple conditions mentioned under a case statement, the case checks for each row one by one from top to bottom. In this case we see three conditions, and whenever a row finds one condition matching, it does not go further and checks for the satisfaction of the remaining conditions. Here in this example, we see that the first row is Rahul. So the salary of Rahul is first compared with this first condition. Here we see that this condition is not matching. So it starts checking for the second condition, which is lesser than 60,000. It returns medium. Even if we have multiple conditions, after the condition which has satisfied, SQL doesn't read all those conditions but immediately goes to this next row, which is Priya, and starts checking for which case condition matches. So this is why the order of conditions which we mention becomes very important. Suppose in this example, I change the order or sequence of these conditions and mention this as my first condition. I say when salary is less than 60,000, it is medium, and less than 40,000 is low, and else it is high, and run this. Let's see whether we get the expected result or not. Here is our result set, and we have got medium everywhere and we haven't got low. This is because, for example, this 35,000. This 35,000 was supposed to fall under the low category. But since the conditions are checked from top to bottom, the first condition here is when salary is less than 60,000, it should be medium. This 35,000 is less than 60,000, and the result for this condition was medium, and SQL Server just printed medium in this column. It did not go to the next category here. So even though this 35,000 is less than 40,000, this condition was never read by the SQL Server. And anything which didn't meet this condition fell under this else part, and so this high value was returned. So this shows why the sequence or the order of conditions when we write a case statement becomes very crucial. Now that we have reached the end of this video, we understood how SQL Server makes logical decisions with respect to data with the help of case conditions. It makes use of keywords like when, then, and else to make these decisions and return the expected result set. Do like the video if you found it useful. Stay tuned and subscribe to OMBI Anganwadi.